Democrat, Republican, right, left. Do these terms mean anything anymore? And why is populism such a dirty word? Why is the establishment so afraid of people collaborating to create new systems? Hello there, you 5.7 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this voyage. Turn on your notification bell right now so you do not miss the daily content we create to illuminate you as best we can, reflecting the light you have given us right back at you. Thank you for staying with us on this journey. Recently, I spoke to Batya Ungasagan about populism, new emergent political ideas that can embrace broad swathes of the population, overcome the factionalism that's preventing people getting together, and finally get us past this turgid stasis where we've got two political parties who highlight the differences in American cultural life to turn people against one another, always ignoring the financial undergirding of a system that means that there is no real democracy. Have a listen to this conversation. I found it most revealing, and I know you will too. Stay to the end and hit me up in the comments below. Let me know if you agree. I'm saying that without a genuine challenge to the current economic hegemony, you cannot reorganize society, and reorganizing society is what we're discussing. Like, I don't think that you can, by dialing up or down the sort of, you know, the income of like this abandoned 20% of working class people in your country, make a meaningful difference. Do you think that you can? And why would we not be interested in 2022 in creating genuinely evolved and different ways of organizing society, embracing technology, embracing diversity, embracing our understanding and awareness of what a real democracy would look like, using, in fact, stuff that's constitutionally explicit already, you know, freedom to be individuals, pursue happiness, etc.
I totally hear what you're saying. I think because the people that I talk to, the things they want are really modest. Like they don't want a revolution, and I don't think they need any of that from me. Like the things they want are just like, you know, it's kind of like the same problem that like the original Marxists had with the, you know, the lumpen proletariat, right? Like they, Lenin was like so dismayed to find out that like all the, you know, the proletariat wanted was lives that were like slightly more like the bourgeois, right? Like they just wanted to own a few things. They just wanted like a few more hours in the day to spend with their kids to feel like a human, you know, like, I spent a lot of time with this Black NYPD detective. All he wants is a better life for those kids in the inner city. And for himself, all he wants is not to be demonized for the work that he does, like trying to provide that for them. And, you know, so to me, like the problems we have are quite modest, although I agree with you about the logjam about solving them, which is why I think that the cultural avenue is probably going to be more fruitful, because these people are making so much money and getting power off of polarization. But so I'm just so focused on these like really modest things, like, you know, like a little home, you know, like they don't want a mansion, they don't want a revolution, they want like just maybe if I could have like a little, you know, little one-story ranch that I could pass on to my kids so they could have a few more choices than I did, you know, or, you know, mom in the inner city whose kid is like has to pass through, you know, gang violence to get to some shitty ass school where they don't even teach them how to read, like, you know, like all they want is like these very modest things. And I totally agree with your analysis about why they can't have them. But I think to me, it's like, well, okay, how can I be a cog in a reworking that will get them those modest things?
Say, for example, what you said about like, you know, property there, like, you know, just the one-story ranch thing, you know, that you're aware, I'm sure, of what's happening in American real estate, the way that it's been, you know, essentially being sort of centralized, that post the various crises of the last 20 years, notably 2008 and the pandemic, that it's seen as sort of ultimately a centralization of property resources. And as for the NYPD cop there, I don't see how centralized power, whether it's state or corporate, can deliver solutions at a local level. And I believe in the devolution of power wherever possible, democracy wherever possible. And what I've learned, see how you, obviously, as a proper journalist, are like talking to people, learning about people, and the way that you have, and the way that your books collate. Like it seems to me that you'll come to some conclusions that are similar, certainly comparable to the ones that I've learned as a comedian touring and talking to people, and frankly, with ambitions that go beyond entertaining. What we're doing is, please God, the sort of creation of a movement that fuse together spiritual ideas and political ideas, and are universal enough to include people from a wide range of political backgrounds. One of the things I've sort of noticed is people just want to be left alone. That's what people want. They don't people telling them what to do. And like the one of the ideas that I've been playing with for a while and trying to understand is that if people want to, like, say I've had conversations with Ben Shapiro, say, who's like a traditional conservative and like sort of if not an Orthodox Jew, certainly a pretty strict practicing Jew. And I've also speak to people that are like totally down with very progressive, gender fluid, ultra sort of modern takes on what it is to be human. And we have to, I believe, respect the rights of both of those groups and recognize that people are going to have to, at some point, have to be left alone to organize their own cultural and social lives. So it becomes, what challenges do you think we're going to face, and how can we bring that about if a particular section of the media is being co-opted, if the financial, not the financial sector, but like the corporate sector is willing to sort of pay lip service to these ideas? And how do we ever how do we create a kind of a consensus and a mutual respect from both sides when it comes to, because even like when you look at the discourse in like what have come to be known as right-wing spaces, there's a lot of what I want to say, cynicism and kind of unkindness, I feel, and a lack of kind of love, I sometimes think, when discussing these ideas. What do you think about that stuff?
No, I totally agree about the lack of love. I think actually this comes back to something you asked me earlier. I didn't really answer well, but for a long time, the left, I think, was at the forefront of really important social revolutions and cultural revolutions around what we now call woke issues. So like race and gender, right? Took many, many years to sort of undo the work of segregation. And definitely the left was at the forefront of that. It took many, many years to get, 96% of Americans to say they're okay with interracial marriage. That was a fight that the left waged and won successfully. Gay marriage, right? Took many years to get gay Americans equal protection before the law. That was the left waged that fight and won that fight. And now 65% of Americans support gay marriage. That includes a lot of Christians, right? Who now say, yeah, I support that right? So a lot of these issues, the left was at the forefront of moving America to a place where now most Americans are sort of on the same page about equal rights. The problem is that they didn't just like lay down their arms and say, my God, you guys, we won. This is so amazing. Like, can you believe, who would have thought the Republicans would be on the side of gay marriage and, equal protections for Black Americans? Who would have thought that a Republican president would release 5,000 Black men from prison? That was President Trump's First Step Act, right? Who would have thought? But they didn't lay down their arms. What they did was they needed to keep going, right? They took things a step further. They overreached. They started saying there's no difference between men and women, and you're a bigot if your religion tells you that there is. They started saying, to want to live in a colorblind society, which was Dr. King's dream, that's now racist, right? Like they took it to a place where you have to have a college degree to even see how that makes sense. Like that kind of academic thinking, right? Where it's like, no, whatever you think is intuitive and commonsensical, that's bad. That's the bad thing, right? That kind of demonization of the way that regular people think, they took it too far. That's what I call wokeness. Certainly not the thing that was initially, when Black people started using the word woke as slang in the 70s, they meant, things that are really important, like combating police brutality and combating mass incarceration. That now there's no partisan divide on those issues anymore. The partisan divide now is on these like overreach issues. And so what you're seeing now is, for the first time in my life, Americans are getting more conservative because they're turning against these sort of revolutionary powers on the left. And, so the left will say these issues now are the same as those issues that you're so happy we won. This is just the next step. But I don't think that's true. Like, I think that it was very clear, that segregation was wrong to many, 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 many Americans, like living in the South even. abortion. Even when it was going on, there were a lot of people who knew it was wrong because intuitively, commonsensically, it was evil. It was obvious that it was evil. Now they've taken it to a place where they've demonized the commonsensical. And so I think that thing where like Americans are turning against that, I guess I keep coming back to this, but I think that there's so much wisdom and insight and truth in where the masses are at and what they want for themselves and their families. We all want the same things, which is, to protect our children and our families. And like, so I think to me, like there are certain things the government should be involved in, healthcare, housing. I agree with you. Like there has to be some kind of governmental response to that. We have to start, keep the pressure on. But honestly, I think, people have written off the right as a place where populist revolutionary legislation can happen. And I think that that's a big mistake because it seems to be more likely it could be coming from there. And because right now what we're seeing is a cultural revolution on the right.
Are you willing now to look at new political solutions? Are you willing to become active in political life yourself, to run your own communities? Let me know in the comments below what you believe the solution to our current problems are and how we can overcome them. Give this video a thumbs up, turn on the notification bell. Remember, I read the comments, so I know exactly what you feel and think as long as you tell me honestly and openly. If you enjoyed this video, please watch either of these and sign up to my mailing list so I can tell you stuff that I would never tell you on this platform, as well as let you know about weekly online events that I do and live events as well. More important than any of that, though, is that you please stay free.